poor depend on the natural resources, but natural resources also depend or are affected by poverty. Because when people are poor, they tend to overuse their natural resources in order to make a livelihood due to lack of other alternative strategies. When the poor affect the environment and the environment affects the poor, there's a negative spiral whereby we move from poverty to environmental degradation and back to poverty because the poor cannot get out of this vicious circle. Our study tries to improve our understanding of the poverty environment spiral and also the factors affecting this spiral. And we do this in order to provide policies or measures that can help us break this spiral. For us to do this, we have carefully chosen two different study areas, that is Narok district and Murang'a district. And we choose these areas because they have a lot of differences in the levels of poverty and inequality, a lot of differences in the natural resources, in the natural resource use, and differences in the landscape or the terrain, and most important, differences in the land ownership system. We are addressing the poverty environment spiral by carrying out interviews with households in the two selected districts and also carrying out interviews with community leaders. The idea of the interviews is to find to what extent households depend on natural resources. In doing this, we also want to find out how households cope or the coping strategies that households have adopted to cope with the poverty environment spiral. We are also finding out the land ownership arrangements and how this relates to the relationship between poverty and environment. Most important is also the gender impact of the poverty environment relationship, and we are also addressing this. People affect the natural resources through over-cultivation. You find people overuse their land, they don't add any nutrients to the soil, such as fertilizers. They don't leave the land fallow, and so the soil is exhausted, it's very bad quality. People also destroy their environment through overgrazing, and it's because they do not have enough fodder for their livestock, and sometimes they keep a lot of livestock in order to survive. People destroy their natural resources through cutting forests and destroying water catchment areas in the search for fuel and for more cultivation grounds. The poor also affect the natural environment by burning charcoal. They cut trees in order to make charcoal, and this is to be used as an alternative source of income to sustain a livelihood. Who are affected by this negative spiral in various ways. They are affected through declining crop productivity. They can no longer get as much as they used to get from the same amount of RAD and the same inputs. The poor are also affected through declining grazing fields at sources of fodder. The poor are also affected through a lack of firewood because the forests are depleted. There are no longer any forests. They have to cut their trees. The poor are also affected through declining sources of water. There is inadequate water, and the water that is available is polluted. Because of population growth, RAD is demarcated into very small parcels which are uneconomical to farm. There are changes in weather conditions whereby you find that sometimes we have flooding or we have no rain at all, and this affects the productivity of the resources that we have. The other factor affecting the spiral is lack of enough knowledge. The poor only have labor as their resource, but they do not have adequate knowledge of how to conserve their RAD. Another very important factor affecting the poverty environment spiral is changes in product prices. A good example is prices for coffee, where the market for coffee has literally collapsed. For the last 10 years or so, prices have been going down. This has made farmers abandon their coffee, making them poorer and forcing them to depend more on natural resources and forcing them to degrade their environment even further. Women are more affected than men by the poverty environment spiral. They are affected in that they have to spend more time looking for firewood, looking for water, and looking for fodder for their livestock, and they also have to spend extra time working as casual laborers to earn some money. Unfortunately, women cannot do much about the impact of the poverty environment spiral because they do not own RAD. The RAD ownership is vested in their male relatives or their husbands. Nevertheless, they would be the best people to make decisions concerning conservation because they are the ones who manage the RAD.